I'm Vin.
I'm Sori.
If you would like to get your song reviewed, dear listener, there's the filthy capitalist option. As Sori says, $125 gets you straight to the head of the line. You don't have to be a part of the alliance. You don't have to be part of the group.
Wait a minute.
And the biggest thing is you don't have to wait. You hop, skip, and jump right in front of everybody. $125 gets you there. You do that 3 times, and you get mashed down to the $75 rate for perpetuity.
Yes!
Also, there is a band review option. So if you've got a band and you're trying to get your band some exposure, hit me up at vinsori@gmail.com, and I'll show you the details about how to pull that off.
You can also jump on Patreon, and there is a option on the tiers to be able to get your band reviewed. Yep. Obviously, we can't lie to you, so we can't guarantee a positive review. Get what you get.
It's just rubbish.
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 That's British for garbage.
My favorite is the community option. $1 at the gate gets you in at Patreon. You get to join an alliance. The alliance joins their points together, and that helps determine what songs that we do.
The alliances hang out on Discord.
Message me on Patreon to get the link.
And they do all kinds of other cool things. They do Minecraft, Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah. It's really a community within the community. Anybody can go on the village, facebook.com/Vin and Sori. There's 160,000+ people on the channel. What's cool about the Discord is that it offers a real opportunity for community connection, friendship, that type of thing.
And it's on Discord, so if you're not a Facebook person, it's for you.
You start off at $1.
Right.
Plus you get exclusives. Sori and I are working on a song. So the first 15 seconds of that was on Patreon. Also, at $15 tier and above, when we actually debut the video, they're going to be there live with us. There you are, dear listener.
Buy our merch.
Buy our merch.
Buy our merch indeed.
We are in the middle of a DJ stream for the Big Homie River, and it's
shout out to the birthday day, River.
And we are about to do the next song on the list, which is Gordon Lightfoot. Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald.
Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald.
It's a classic. This is the message from River. A classic folk song that almost anyone who knows the genre knows, and based upon an event that happened close to the part of the country I call home. An incredibly sad but very quality song. I'm shocked you haven't reacted to it yet.
Okay.
So that's on you, Vin.
Gordon Lightfoot, the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald. Let's go.
Yep.
The legend lives on from the Chippewa on down of the big lake they call Gitchagumi. The lake, it is said, never gives up her dead when the skies of November turn gloomy.
Oh no.
With a load of iron ore, 26,000 tons more than the Edmund Fitzgerald weighed empty. That good ship and true was a bone to be chewed when the gales of November came early. The ship was the pride of the American side, coming back from some mill in Wisconsin. As the big freighters go, it was bigger than most, with a crew and good captain well seasoned, concluding some terms with a couple of steel firms when they left fully loaded for Cleveland. Then later that night when the ship's bell rang, could it be the north wind they'd been feeling? The wind and the wires made a tattletale sound, and the wave broke over the railing. And every man knew, as the captain did too, 'twas the witch of November come stealing. The dawn came late and the breakfast had to wait when the gales of November came slashing. When afternoon came, it was freezing rain in the face of a hurricane west wind. time came, the old cook came on deck saying, fellas, it's too rough to feed you. At 7 p.m. a main hatchway caved in. He said, fellas, it's been good to know you. Yikes. The captain wired in, he had water coming in, and the good ship and crew was in peril. Later that night when his lights went out of sight, came the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald. Does anyone know where the love of God goes when the waves turn the minutes to hours? The searchers all say they'd have made Whitefish Bay if they'd put 15 more miles behind her. They might have split up or they might have capsized. They may have broke deep and took water. And all that remains is the faces and the names of the wives and the sons and the daughters. Lake Huron Row, Superior sings in the rooms of her ice water mansion. Old Michigan steams like a young man's dreams. The islands and bays are for sportsmen. And farther below, Lake Ontario takes in what Lake Erie can send her. The iron boats go, as the mariners all know, with the gales of November remembered. In a musty old hall in Detroit they prayed in the Maritime Sailors' Cathedral. The church bell chimed till it rang 29 times for each man on the Edmund Fitzgerald. The legend lives on from the Chippewa on down of the big lake they call Gitchagumi. Superior, they said, never gives up her dead when the gales of November come early.
That river. Just when you think these villagers, that's when you think you got these people figured out, bro.
You find out you're wrong. And they're actually human beings.
Well, yeah, I mean, I always knew River was human. It's just...
No, I'm saying, like, you think you can figure somebody out, but you can't figure humans out.
We got Pastor Muppets in the house.
Hey, what's up?
Boop, boop. She just got over COVID.
No.
Yeah. Shout out to the homie.
Holy shit, is that what she said?
Yeah, she said it in one of her comments recently.
Oh my gosh. I'm so glad you're doing better. Holy moly.
For sure. Damn, what a sad song, bro.
It's based on a real event, too.
But, like, yeah, that's why it's so sad. Like, those ship stories, man, they're kind of depressing.
Strange as it seems, this one didn't depress me as much as I would have thought. I think because it happened so long ago that it's like a little bit like it's got that heavy sadness of history but it's not something that happened within our lifetime. So, well, I'm assuming that. That's an assumption because I'm thinking, so this song was released in 1976. And so I'm assuming even if these people lived, they wouldn't be alive anymore. But that's an assumption. I don't know when the ship sunk. But that's pretty crazy when it said they were... Where did
15 miles away.
Yeah, if they would have gone 15 miles further...
They would have made it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I hate
if they'd have put
like
15 more miles behind her.
I hate shit like that. I cannot stand it.
When the waves turn minutes to hours.
Well, that line right there, does anyone know where the love of God goes, where the waves turn? That was a crazy line. Yeah. I can't believe it. I like send us an email, Bowser, and we'll hook you up with the specs. But like, yeah, man. There was a little stretch there around 1999 or so where every year for a couple of years there was a disaster movie.
Oh, yeah. I loved those.
Volcano, whatever.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I forgot about that movie.
One of the things that I hated as a kid in those movies was there was always some scene where a guy was about to die and he knew he was going to die. Mm-hmm. I hated those scenes so much because I always felt like, oh, you guys are giving up. Like, just keep going until you can't. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. But they'd get this, like, look of resignation on their face, and they would just, like,
That's
you know. It. And I would always be like, what the fuck is wrong with you people? Like, fight for your life. What are you doing? I didn't really, like, I still wouldn't. I mean, I've got people that are depending on me. Like, I wouldn't just go and surrender to the wave or something like that. I just could never understand it, you know. And of course, I didn't get the idea that, look, you know, when you're a kid and you really haven't seen death, mm-hmm. you don't really believe it.
Yeah,
you know, It's actually really interesting. I was in a conversation with a good friend. He's like, "Why do you believe X, Y, and Z thing?" It's like, why do you believe you're gonna die? You've never died before. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? But it was really interesting. So I remember being a kid, like, what are you doing? Like, you could have figured something out. Hold your breath. Oh, there's a big wave. Like, I didn't, you know what I'm saying? Like, I didn't really understand. Then I watched, actually, it's funny because I brought up The Perfect Storm.
Yeah.
The Perfect Storm is about these lobstermen in Maine, and they died. You know, they were going for thingamajiggy, and it was one of those things where they shouldn't have been there, and you know, it's just all these like, and then that phrase, "a perfect storm," came to be.
Oh.
Well, I mean, the phrase was around before that.
Yeah, but it's really, like a double.
It really got popularized after that, where it's like
everything lined up to create a perfect storm.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where it's like, there's so many times when I listen to situations and I'm like, it just appeared like you were gonna die that day, bro. Like Vaughn, for example. King Vaughn, he was done with the day. The day was over, and they were all gonna go back to the hotel. And if he would have went to the hotel, he'd be alive right now. Mm-hmm. But instead, he takes a left, goes to some other club. None of his security knew where he was, and they finally find him. So they lost him. They found him. Then one of the dudes from the security team was like, "Yo, that's that nigga right there." Blah, 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 blah. Started instigating it. Vaughn gets out of the car and engages in an altercation, and then 4 seconds later, he's dead. And it's just like,
yeah.
I was listening to the head of his security team, and he was just like, he said that whole night he was doing shit that he never does. And same thing with Tupac, same thing with Big. It's like these crazy, tragic situations that could have easily have been. That's one of the reasons why I'm like so crazy about Medicare for All and this Alex Smith situations, where it's like,
it could be
this kid had a preventable death, and how many more kids like him are going to die at 28 because, you know, whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not even gonna make it political. It's just, 28-year-old kids dying because they're rationing insulin, I'm certain that everybody feels like it's bad. You know what I'm saying? Nobody's saying, oh, that's great. It's just how to solve the problem, I think, is where the debate is for most of us. But
yeah, I think, like, for me, when I would watch the disaster movies, I always loved those. Because I always was like, would I survive? Okay, and you have a plan in your head of what you're going to do, and when the character in the movie does something different, you're like, yeah, I don't think they should do that. And then all of a sudden something bad happens, and you're like, yeah, I knew it. You know what I mean? Or sometimes that it actually worked out. But there was that element of it, and I think that I've always had this dilemma, and even to this day, I can still be found arguing with my own mind on it. So I've always wondered, like, is your path complete? And this is going to sound probably completely heretical because I'm a Christian. So feel free to answer me in the way that you desire. So there's
Hold on. So Sean is saying that he sent you stuff to the secret email and hasn't gotten a response. Don't worry about it.
We'll talk about that after.
Sean, you should receive a response from Princess in shortly after this is completed.
Yeah.
We continue.
So there's this idea that, like, is your life completely start to finish chosen for you? Are you sort of on this this path? You know, like in the old mines, there was those carts, or like on Donkey Kong, you go on those carts, and it's really not like you're going where the road is taking you. And you feel maybe out of control, or maybe feel in control by the way that you're maneuvering it. But essentially, you're flying out the end of the hole and you're going out into the middle of nowhere. Maybe you'll land in a river. Maybe you'll crash and die.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And then life kind of feels like it's like that. Or sometimes it's like, I used to wonder, are there more than one person for somebody? And I couldn't really get a solid answer out of my parents or any of the leaders around me. It was like, is there multiple people for one person, and you could settle with this one, and it all will basically be the same? They're all going to bring the same amount of dysfunction or heartaches or love or intensity or whatever. I always felt like you probably could have like 5 or 6 different options, but that there is one that is like the ultimate that you may or may not find that person. But then, like, stuff like this where it's like, okay, had they have been 15 miles further, they wouldn't have died. Now, why weren't they that far? Did they take a break? Did they, what? Were they going full speed ahead and that happened? Well, if they went full speed ahead and they were 15 miles away, what can be done? But did they take a break and that led them to their, you know what I mean? So then it kind of would put me in this situation where, should I go full speed ahead or should I hang back? And you don't know which one's going to bring disaster. And so it's kind of like this...
Yeah.
You can't control anything. Like, you can't figure it out, because either way, life brings problems. Life brings issues. And then you could blame it on the circumstances. You could say, shit, if I wouldn't have slowed down and I would have kept going, maybe I would have been 15 miles ahead, I would have survived, or vice versa. It's like there's always something that you can say when something goes wrong to blame it on some event or some decision or whatever. But then at the end of it is, was that going to happen to you regardless? Like, were you going to screw up in another way and it was going to land like...
Look at this crazy thing from Amy. I had this unusual, not going to say curse, when I was a kid. For 8 consecutive years, I almost died on August 2nd. Every single time, I escaped death only by seconds.
But that's what I mean. That's bizarre. That's extremely bizarre.
Yeah.
But then you see movies like, I can't remember what it was. There was a movie where you were destined to die.
Final Destination.
Yeah. And it didn't matter. You survived the bus. Oh, well, look, here comes these logs rolling down the hill at you. Like, there is no escaping what's supposed to happen. And I'm not really, you can tell, I'm still a little frazzled about the topic, because I don't feel like I have a good solid answer. And even when you describe it and you talk about the panel and then they make a decision and... the end is decided, but the means is not necessary. So that kind of fits into the... You see what I'm saying?
Well, no, I think the means are also decided.
Well, they're decided, but I thought you said it's the panel decision. Like, God will be like, all right, so this is going to happen. And then somebody comes up with an idea.
Well, the divine counsel is obviously there, but that doesn't mean he doesn't have an eternal decree. So God's usage of divine counsel would be an example where he superintends the means as well as the ends, because the the deliberation in divine council is also something he decreed. So when you look at the prophet Micaiah, where he talks about, I saw this happen in the divine council, God said, okay, who's gonna come up with a plan to destroy this guy? And so everybody came with their idea, but God had already decreed which messenger it was going to be and what the methodology was. So when the guy showed up and said, I'll be the lion spirit, God says, okay, yeah, you'll be successful. So it's kind of like my buddy Anwar al-Awlaki radiyallahu anhu, he said that Muhammad only did shuras. Shura is when you get everybody together and say, what should we do? And this sheikh said, look, the prophet, he already knew all this stuff. He's just doing it to show us that shura is important, right? So God doesn't need the divine council to act in the world. He just does it as a means because he
like
likes
prayer.
Like
prayer.
Yeah, he just does it because he likes the fellowship with those beings that populate.
So I know that we've already talked about this probably like a gazillion times, but you're saying if it's already decreed and it's going to happen the way that it's going to happen,
it's a cutter of a law.
Then if you find yourself underneath the building collapses on you and you find yourself under the pile of rubble and you're still alive, then you would say to yourself, this was unavoidable?
What would you say? This was avoidable and I was just stupid, and God's up there like, no, don't go there, you'll end up at the bottom of the building.
No, I think that's the two minds thing. You know what I mean? Like, there's one part of me that's like, I would say to myself, God decreed this and I was meant to be here and this is how it was supposed to go. And then there's another part of me that's like, well, what if I would have taken the left door instead of the fucking right door? Maybe I wouldn't be under this pile of rubble. But you would never say that. You would always just say, it went as it was supposed to.
Yeah, I wouldn't. Yeah.
Do you always assume that your decisions come from God? Or do you assume that if you make a bad decision, he's going to make lemonade out of lemons?
Yeah, I don't sit and overanalyze my decisions. What I try to focus more on is equipping my mind to make the wisest decisions possible. Because that's the only thing that's going to help me in the present. You know, crybabying over Allah's qadr or, you know, a bad coincidence, however you want to phrase the situation, doesn't do anything in the real world. So, you know, my whole philosophical outlook is I need some shit that I can apply on a Tuesday at 3 p.m.
Oh, yeah.
So that type of over-analysis or not necessarily or analysis, I don't have the mental strength for. I'm not strong enough mentally to just walk through the day and then rehash every decision that I mean,
it's exhausting.
I've been in situations where literally it's inches and seconds, and life changed for a lot of people.
And
so, I mean, my point is,
but that doesn't affect you because you just say it was meant to be.
Well, no, it doesn't. What do you mean it doesn't affect? Of course, it affects me. It's a bad providence. I don't like it. I wish God would have written something else in that person's
But
story.
you don't blame yourself.
I mean, we've talked about this.
You do blame yourself. But see, this is what I'm saying.
I've talked about this with the suicide issue.
Yes, this is what I'm saying, and I feel like I don't have a solid answer no matter who I talk to. It doesn't seem like it's.
I mean, a solid answer. I think, you know, it's God decrees what happens, whatsoever comes to pass, and then we act it out. You know, we've talked about the author who writes a story. Mm-hmm. I mean, none of this is new. What exactly is unclear? So, like Hamlet, right, is in the universe of that story. Hamlet is making choices. Nobody's forcing him to make any choices. But Shakespeare wrote the play. So there's nothing Hamlet could have done other than that. So a lot of people's conflict about quote-unquote free will has to do with an assumption of libertarianism. So a libertarian understanding of the will is that you can act or act otherwise, and that a choice is not genuine unless you really can choose between chocolate and vanilla, which is, of course, doesn't make sense in the real world, because if you put ketchup and mayonnaise next to each other, I'm going to choose ketchup 100 times out of 100. That's a genuine choice, and I cannot choose mayonnaise because I hate mayonnaise. So libertarians who believe that the will is kind of neutral and that you can go left or right without any consideration for God's decree or the limitations of the sinful nature. I just think doesn't make sense biblically and doesn't make sense in the world. There's lots of things that I want to do that my nature limits me from doing. Mm-hmm. So I take a compatibilist understanding of the will, which is that a choice is
muted,
genuine.
Guys? We're muted.
I don't think we're muted.
Oh, maybe it's his headphones.
Yeah, it could be his headphones. It looks like we're sounding pretty good here. So God has a decree. Shakespeare wrote the play, but Hamlet is still. We still say, Hamlet, you're a dick, or King Duncan, you're a dick. You should have done that to your friend.
I think the dilemma, and I know we've talked about this a billion times, but until I finally get it, we're going to have to talk more about it because I just cannot grasp around it. So when, if a kid, if the kid on purpose throws the ball through our glass window.
Yeah.
I mean, he chose that. God decreed that.
Yeah.
But God decreed that, so how could he have really chose that? But he's going to get in trouble?
When you say really chose that, what do you mean by really chose? That's assuming...
Well, he wanted to do it.
Okay.
So in other words, it would be like if you like when I was pregnant and oh my gosh, I loved that ice cream just so much.
Yeah.
And if you set it in front of me, I know that I have the opportunity to say I'm not going to take that, but it really was like I had no choice.
Yeah.
I had to consume it if it was there.
Well,
so there's a choice, but not a choice.
Well, again, when you say not a choice, that assumes libertarianism. This is something that a lot of people have struggle with. I was talking with my atheist friends about this, and he kept falling back into it. A libertarian says that unless I could do something else, it's not a real choice. That's what a libertarian. So that's why you keep saying real choice, real choice. What you're saying is, yeah, compatibilism is another theory of the will, but it's not a real freedom. The real freedom is libertarianism. But that doesn't work as a Christian because God cannot lie. He literally cannot do that.
Right.
Is the Trinitarian love between the persons of the Trinity, is that not genuine because they couldn't have done anything else?
No, and I mean, I think you could say that about your kid.
Does the Son have the capacity not to love God the Father? Of course not. So I guess does he have the capacity not to love us? Of course not. So does it mean that Jesus' love for us is not genuine because he couldn't do anything other than love us? So libertarianism does not work in a Christian worldview. So when that's why a lot of people have issues with the whole free will versus God's decree thing, because they keep falling back into libertarianism because all of us have grown up as libertarian. Everybody grows up as a libertarian. Everybody feels like they made their decisions from some sort of neutral place. Mm-hmm. That's why I said, we don't have unbiased reactions. Having an unbiased reaction is impossible. That's why I said none of my reactions None of my reactions are unbiased. I can be converted though. So everybody starts with a bias.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I would agree with all that.
That's what a compatibilist would say, but a libertarian would say, well, if you start with a bias, it's not a genuine choice. See what I'm saying?
It's just hard to hold on to. If I'm in jail, I'd like to be out of jail, but I'm in jail. Right. So I'm not choosing to be in jail. I'm stuck in there. So do I have a genuine choice to be in or out of jail? No, I don't. I'm in jail.
Yeah, that's why I would say that compatibilism works more with the real world than libertarianism. Because there are very few situations. I mean, I personally don't believe there are any situations in which we engage from a neutral state. I mean, when?
You're saying being outside of a bias?
The only
What do you mean by neutral?
The only
not
thing
bias?
That you're at zero. You don't have a favorite food. You don't have an opinion on a song until you hear it. It's that's what I mean by bias. All of us have biases.
Yeah, and I think that the older you get, the more and more biases
of course.
you have.
That's what I'm saying.
Until you're almost
that's why to me it's there are so many assumptions. Like, for example, when we're talking about the quote scientific community, there's this assumption that it's just these guys in lab coats and they're just automatons.
I used to think that. I don't think that anymore.
Well, yeah, you don't think that anymore after whatever.
Well,
but a lot of people
now.
have based their entire eternity off that assumption.
Yeah. Yes.
It's a pretty shaky foundation, if you ask me. Holy shit. But yeah. So my understanding of the will is that we make choices according to our nature, and that a choice is genuine if there's a genuine internal compulsion for that thing.
See, that's one thing.
You don't have to be neutral to have a genuine choice.
That's one thing that terrifies me about, I guess you could say, the scientific community or whatever. So I can throw in with science because I can see that there is scientific evidence for stuff. Simultaneously, I've seen evidence within myself and within other people that we have something beyond just a physical body, and that there is something else that is a part of a person, and namely the spirit and the soul.
Right.
And science doesn't account for that stuff.
Right.
And it doesn't account, and what little bit of detail it gives us, it really doesn't account for it. And so that's why, even if I wasn't a Christian, I don't think I would throw in just with the scientific community, because I'd say, well, hold on a minute. There's got to be a way to make the scientific community and the experts of spirituality mesh together if it's actually the truth.
Yeah, I think, with the quantum stuff and
Hoffman and all
I would just listen to another physicist today, and he was like, yeah, we have to put God in there at some point. So I think the next generation, like, we're going to have different discussions, different arguments. I think, I don't think that in 20 years, I really don't think that it's going to be cool to walk around like people do now and say certain stuff.
Yeah.
I just think that the weight of the scientific discoveries that we're going to have are going to be too much.
Yeah, I can see that.
And people are going to have to
that.
come up with alternatives. But what does that have to do with the nature of the will?
Well, I don't know. I guess just thinking about the will and thinking about the decisions, and like before, when I was like a teenager or in my 20s or something, like I thought that there was like one path and there's all these deviations from the path, and all of them are going to kind of essentially lead you to the end result. But at the same time, like if you take this, it's like the divine path, and this, you left the divine path. So you could leave that.
That's standard Arminianism.
Right. Yeah. And then you would kind of like circle your way back to it. But
Inshallah.
Somewhere in all of that, like I think because I don't like feeling like stuff is out of control, and I like stuff to be well placed and expected and like predictable.
Sure.
And that was something that was unpredictable. I don't know what tomorrow is going to hold. And so the way that I was able to cope with the uncertainty of tomorrow or the boredom of tomorrow was to believe that God was in every step that I was going to take. And so tomorrow was going to consist of all that God wanted it to consist of. And I loved that theology. I loved that way of thinking and the way of looking at the world. And so anything that I was presented with, I basically just said, okay, well, is there a biblical principle that goes along with this so I can make the best decision possible? And then from there, just move forward and just say, okay, this is God's ultimate plan and I'm going with it. And it like they would always talk about divine intervention and stuff. So like anytime like you had a meeting with someone or you talked to someone, you were like, yeah, this is definitely God's plan. So
yeah,
I guess,
did you think to yourself, this happened because of everyone's free will?
Well, see, that's the weird thing.
That's what I'm saying.
It didn't account for people's will.
It doesn't account for it.
No, it didn't.
You see what I'm saying?
It just was just the path of.
So yeah, I would just rather say, yeah, God's the author. He wrote the story, and there are times when he phases in the story and becomes a character in the story, and sometimes he's outside the story, and he narrates a story. But either way, it's a story, and the characters are free in the universe of that story insofar as they know. But if you pull out in another lens, then obviously the writer made them do everything, right? Like Steven Spielberg made that guy shoot that guy.
I think ultimately at the end of the day, like one thing that I've searched after or tried to pursue in my life is to find that contentment and that rest. And especially like if you're a controlling person, you want to control the hell out of everything so everything is predictable. But at the same time, there's boredom in predictability. So...
Well, it's that constant balance between novelty and stability.
Yeah.
But, in this song, it just felt like, especially when that 15 miles, man, that's just a horrible, horrible situation. And those are things that I'm like, yeah, man, like, you were just supposed to go, bro. That's like, there's just so many situations where it's like, listen to him about Big, and it appears that Big wasn't the target. It was actually Puff was the target. Like, it's just... Vaughn, I've seen people, they got hit in the face, they knocked out and died because they hit the head the wrong way on the ground. Then the other kid gets shot 35 times, he survives.
And I know, that's the thing.
Like, so for me, I'm like, and me, I've been in pretty crazy situations. I'm thinking about one right now. I'm like, I'm gonna die in the next 5 seconds, bro. Like, this shit is really over. I was
okay. So if at that point you would have thrown in the towel like those people and said, "Let it take me,"
no,
would you have died?
Yeah, I would have died if I would.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, if I'd have done that, I'd have died for sure. But I'm saying that because
but you wouldn't have,
because my mom did that.
Right, that's exactly the story I was thinking of.
Car accident happened. We got hit in the other lane. The 18-year-old was coming to us, and she says, "All right, Lord, we're coming home." Of course, I'm 8, so I didn't know that we were really on the way home. And then shout out to my brother. He jumped in at the last second and saved everybody in the car. Mashallah. Good for you, bro.
I don't understand how he didn't flip that car. I would have overturned and flipped it. I know it.
That's just Junior. He's on that big brother shit. Shout out to the homie. I wouldn't be here right now. So yeah, I don't really, after a couple of those experiences, you go, okay, well, when I'm supposed to die, I'm gonna die. I'll slip on a banana peel down the stairs and break my neck or some shit, but I don't really worry about a lot of that shit anymore. But it's weird because some people, when their life is in danger, they get super paranoid.
Yeah.
The first time you're shot at, people get really me. I'm like,
yeah, there was I was looking into different reactions that people have, and everybody always talks about flight or fight, but there's a third one that I guess people never talk about, and that's to freeze. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of like the possum playing dead sort of thing. And it actually happens a lot of time with people that have been sexually abused.
Yeah.
They will freeze.
Yeah.
And then they'll
fight or flight.
No, not fight or flight, because you're not running and you're not fighting. It's freezing.
Yeah, it's flight, fright, or freeze.
Yeah.
That's what they used to say. Yeah.
They did? Over there?
Yeah.
I never heard that before. It was something that I was like looking at. I'm like, holy shit, that's crazy. And people will do that. They'll just freeze in a situation. And especially like in a sexual abuse situation, they will feel like they accepted it and they didn't fight against it because they froze. But your freezing was actually a response of you fighting it. It was just your body's way of saying it wouldn't be safe to fight and it wouldn't be safe to run. The safest thing that I can do now is fucking freeze. And that's what they do.
Yeah. And
so that's you fighting.
Yeah.
So
that's real talk. That is real talk.
Yeah.
But it was just sad when and Puppets was talking about this too, when it's like, all right, guys, well, it was nice knowing you.
Yeah.
Those like last things that people say. I was looking at this how do I tell this story?
What odd research have you been doing?
So there was this guy who he was not a very good person, say it that way, and he had killed someone, and it was really fucked up too because folks were looking for him to get him. So anyway, he did what he did, whatever, and obviously people were looking for him, and when they found him, like people were like chick 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 chick, and he just looked up and he goes, "Damn, y'all finally got me."
And they killed him.
And he's dead. And he was just completely calm. He was just, oh, yo, just crazy. Like, shit is just weird. That shit is just, it's just very, very eerie situation. Very weird. People just, the way certain people handle death, it's completely unpredictable. Some people panic over dumb shit. Like, it's like, and other people are just completely like, all right, I'm at the end, and that's it. And they're not worried. They're not.
Are they somebody that you would consider where they felt like that they were right in the eternal sense? Like, did that person?
No, I doubt very highly he thought he was right in the. Well, I mean, I don't know. I don't know. But it's just, some of it is like, just, scientific. Your body gets flooded with certain endorphins or whatever.
Wow.
It's just really, really crazy. It's just crazy how everybody handles death and these stories, and then it's just a lot of craziness. But this song is getting an 11 from me because it was just, I mean, it's an important song, and it sparked very important discussions, and it's something to think about. Because look, everybody's got a day.
Right.
Like, I don't want to be a downer, especially on River's birthday, but everybody's got a day.
Well, River picked this song.
So you gotta people play around with stuff, until it's too late. And I would just be wise. That's all I'd say.
Yeah.
Whoa, DJ Mike gave it an 11 as well.
Okay, so I am gonna go with a 9.8 for this one.
Yeah, man. Rest in peace to everybody. This is a crazy track, Riv. Really, really crazy track. You're this is like the strangest DJ stream I've done as far as like the takes, the selections, because I had a perception of River. You know what I'm saying? So I'm looking at these songs. I'm like, oh, okay, I know he's, and I'm not disappointed. I'm like pleasantly surprised. But holy shit, River! All right, shout out to the homie. If you are in the DJ stream, never you fail. We still have more coming for you. If you're a bum and you're not in the DJ stream,
that's a request. And if you're a bum and you're not in the DJ stream, I was going to say F you, but I'm afraid Vinny's father might start watching some of these, so I'm just going to say, have a nice night.
Yeah.
So we're about to come up to another song, so prepare yourself, those of you who are in the stream, and let's go.
Having said that, Vin out.
Sori out.
Gone.